One.
All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, here we go again. This is the third married couple that has a business together that has been on this show. And I was just telling them before we started recording how excited I was, because you never know when you get the emails, you never know if you're going to be both of them. But yes, you guys are it's Ann and Mark Lackey, but they are the founders of Hire Smart Cares. And the two previous couples, one actually ran a business that was about dieting, and the other couple were two college professors that were doing some major things in business. And you're the goal. You are the goal in terms of a single man like myself. I see you guys and say, hey, relationship goals right there on the show. So appreciate the work you guys are doing. And there's so much ground we have to cover, because like I was telling you guys, I do a lot of work with kids. I do a lot of work in the teamwork aspect, and you guys have a company. Even before that, though, there seemed to be an element when it comes to, just teaching people how to hire the right way, whether it's virtual, whether it's making it so they're like, can you just kind of dive a little deeper into like where this drive came from to sort of help people find the right candidates for the right position? I know that's a loaded question, but feel free to kind of, give a little bit about your background and stuff like that. And by the way, that happens on the show. Everything is pretty organic when it comes to this. So, the microphone is yours.
We can always go with the flow. So
yeah, we're good there.
Yeah. So I'm Ann Lackey. I'm the co-founder. This is my ride or die, Mark. Mm-hmm. And we have been helping business owners, coaching business owners, working in the school system for probably 16, 17 years. 17. And so what we determined was there was this really big need where people needed to be able to assess good talent, hire good talent, know where to find good talent. And so we've always had a heart for having people be in the right seat on the right bus. I mean, so I guess in a nutshell, that's what we have done all of our careers. Now we do it globally. We do it locally in our community. We do it in the school systems. We do it, like I said, on a global stage as well. But our passion is really helping people operate in their zone of genius, whatever that is. And so Hire Smart Cares was a vision that Mark had about 3.5 years ago. And to which he said, I had told him before that, no more businesses, honey, we're done. He's like, oh man, I got one more. Yeah. And I couldn't say no to Hire Smart Cares because it is a wonderful opportunity. So that's kind of how we got started.
Right. So previously, let's go back a little further than that, because you had mentioned, the 17 years, 18 years of wanting to help people. There's been a lot of changes that have gone on between that time. Things are now going virtual. Things are, before that, the internet wasn't really anything that people cared about. What were the things that you were able to kind of pick up on and be able to pivot when everything started changing around us and hiring became a completely different ball game over the past, 10 years, since these things that we have right here became like so mobile, it's kept us so connected?
That's a great lead in. We're serial entrepreneurs. Okay. So we've run businesses, we have multiple ones, we have employees, and with businesses and employees, there's always challenges. So we weren't able to take vacation. When we finally did, 10 years ago, we went on a vacation, first time in 7 years. And one of these machines a text came up from our key employee manning the front desk and all our phone calls. It says, I've gone to lunch and I'm not coming back.
Work abandoned?
Yeah.
So you didn't get text.
Unfortunately, I've had quite a few experience. In education, there's tons of people that'll just decide they're just not going to work, which I don't get how you can complain about your situation when you have a job that's paying you every 2 weeks and you have the audacity to leave it every 2 weeks. I to this day, I can't imagine doing something like that. I just don't get it.
She quit, and we're down at the beach, and we've just gone to our favorite breakfast place. We're like, well, we'll pack up. We went back home and started back. And that's when this is in
the middle of your vacation. You have to stop the vacation.
First vacation in 7 years.
First night, get up the next morning, go to breakfast at our favorite place, Duck's Diner.
I hate to
and get the text, and we're like, this just isn't going to work. So
yeah,
that gave us.
I don't want to, but just the listeners, you can't do that kind of stuff. I get it. Listen, we have frustrations in our job. We do a lot of things, but when you look at the people out there that are struggling for work and the things that real people would do for work, you cannot just decide, I'm going to leave a job. Your reputation, the way you are, that mentality is so detrimental to everyone and everybody doing their thing. That is so important that we make sure we don't do that. All right. Have some class, have some integrity. I get it. Listen, I've worked a ton of jobs that I can't stand, but give the people their notice and just don't be selfish when it comes to that. But anyway, go ahead.
Interesting enough, she had been with us for 4 years. So, I mean, this wasn't a short-term employee. This was somebody that we had poured a lot of time, energy on. Now, looking back, she had
some challenges,
personal stuff. Her mom had cancer, her sister had cancer. So, I mean, I get it,
Right.
but could you not have waited 1 week after you had worked with us for that long just to let us have a breath? But you know what? It worked out to be the absolute best thing on the planet for us because it really forced us to look at hiring differently. Now, I have 35 years of HR experience. I started actually right in college in the personnel department of a bank. And so some of the things that you're saying are true. Like how you show up, how you present yourself makes a huge difference because that receptionist, believe it or not, can make the determination of whether you get an interview or not, or get passed through or not. And I think a lot of people,
they minimize that person at the front, but that person at the front, that director of first impressions, right?
Yeah,
can have an influence there.
I mean, I had a direct ear to the vice president of the bank. And if I said that person was rude to me, she's like, well, how can I be comfortable that they're going to be polite to my clients and my customers? So I actually had a huge opportunity as a very young professional to make my mark on the world. And it taught me a lot of lessons, of which we tell a lot of our young people today. You know, we go back to those stories and we share them with them to say, look, you don't know who you're standing next to in line. You don't know who you're riding up on an elevator with. You don't know who you just cut off in traffic right before you worked into the parking lot.
Yeah. And they remember, we've been into classrooms at local high schools in our county and adjacent counties. And they have us come in when it gets towards the end of the year and they know the kids are going to go out on job interviews. And we go in and we teach them how to shake hands, make eye contact, work on their resume, basic social skills that they do not have. Right. And that's what you were reflecting on. Come on, people, be gracious and delight the people you're working for.
Right. And you're absolutely right. This has changed the world in a lot of ways, in some ways for the better and in some ways not so much. And so if you're a young person listening to today's podcast, keep your cell phone and your parents away from that job.
Leave them in the car.
Leave all of it in the car. Do not even step anywhere close with either one of those things. And then, you know, unfortunately, we're seeing that in today's world that parents are accompanying young people on interviews, and that's not a way to get a job because they don't feel you can work independently. Again, some of you may not have transportation. We get it. Have your parents drop you off and have an assigned time to come back. But truly, it has changed our world and the way we hire. And so anyway, but there's lots of lessons in all.
So thanks for saying that. My first job in college, I was actually a front desk associate for a gym, and it was in the area of Maryland that's incredibly affluent. There were entrepreneurs coming in and out of a gym, and being the first guy that they see when they come in and the last guy that they see when they leave, you got to understand, going to a gym can mean instead of going to a bar, it can be going, you know, instead of going to somebody that you don't need to be dealing with, it could be you're doing something that's productive. You're going to a gym as opposed to going to wherever you are going. So my manager used to tell me all the time, say hi and bye. How was your workout? Ask them what their goals are. Any 5Ks coming up, anything you want to be doing, ask them about their goals. Are you coming to the spin class? You know, what's your time going to be in the spin class? Tons of things that I was like taught to just ask these questions and your people skills will develop. I was 19 years old when I was given that advice. And just like you, I go back to these same things every single day because they're true. These are basic things that you have to, basic skills that and unfortunately, what I'm learning as a teacher are not actually being taught into home. And it takes people who have been there to speak to that. So, you know, when you guys decided after that vacation how you're going to do hiring different, what were the steps, and what were, I guess, kind of let us in a little bit about what the conversations were like between the two of you that said, look, this is the requirement, this is what we're looking for from people. And, you know, one of the things I've learned as a challenge is you can't change folks. You know, once they get to a certain age and you want them to be a certain way, you can't change them just because you give them a job. Eventually, the old saying, a zebra just doesn't change its stripes. So if they're like that, you can't hire them. Kind of walk us through that process a little bit.
So we had lots of conversations. We had a 6-hour drive back.
Yeah, I'm sure that one was fired up, man.
So we had windshield time.
Right.
And one of the things that we had gotten introduced to relatively early on was that we didn't have to hire in our backyard anymore. And so part of the conversation is, well, what would it like to open up to a global workforce? And so we did our research, and we did a lot of, again, my background and Mark's background, and kind of, we call them fusion, because we are definitely two sides of the same coin. And how do we take our skill sets and go to apply that to a global workforce? So Hire Smart Virtual Employees was kind of born out of that kind of conversation. And we learned as we do with anything, when Mark and I get our teeth into something, we go deep and long. Like, we want to figure everything out and do it the very best way. And that we've done that in every business that we've started.
So we made a decision. We were going to try that frontline desk, which is customer service, answering the phone, smiling on the phone, because people can feel and sense that smile at the other end. And because most Americans are so dissatisfied with the phone calls that they get to customer service, we wanted to do it differently. We wanted to delight the folks that were getting the phone calls answered. So we decided we were going to hire globally. And that was a big change, because we had hired people we knew. We hired people in our community that would come into our office and work right there. And it meant a big change because they weren't going to be working in our office. So it was a big mind shift.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I think really kind of bore out of that, and one of the things that we believe holds true today is going along with what you said, is that people don't change. They have an innate skill set. They have an innate personality. And so one of the things that we believe in and that we implemented is a hiring process that is what we call our scientific way of hiring. So we use an assessment platform. Now, we had to tweak that for our Philippine work staff, because, again, culturally, it's a little different. Some of the ways they answer questions are a little different. So literally the last 7 years, we've been collecting data and applying data to, what is the profile of our top performing customer service rep? What traits do they have in common with the other top performers? And so we've been able to go through this process and evaluate that there's certain triggers or markers for a really good customer service person, and they need to have this, and this to be really good and enjoy it. Again, we're all about people need to enjoy their life. You spend 8 hours of your day working. You need to love what you do, or it's a grind.
And
right?
if it doesn't, it comes across the phone that you're not enjoying your job, and it's a real turnoff to that person that's inquiring.
So we do what we call our analytics hiring. Ann's my first name, and so we kind of branded it as that.
I caught that. I caught it. Don't worry, I caught that. I like it.
Some people think it's a little funny.
Oh, no, that's yours, man. Coin that.
and so we've developed over time these really solid profiles for various roles that we staff for. And so the same is true, though, with Hire Smart Cares, right? I mean, again, kids have this innate ability. They either like to be in front of people, or they like to be, more reserved. They like to have hands-on tasks, or they like to be more vocal. And so there's these patterns that we can watch and that we can assess. So when when Hire Smart Cares, when we're working in the classroom, we're looking at what are they gravitating towards, because we want them to be successful.
And we've got a draft right now of a test for the kids. It's 10 questions that'll help them determine based on what they like to do, what's fun and enjoyable, what would be the best track for a career for them.
Right.
And it'll be helpful because some kids are good with their hands, some kids are good with their mind. When I was in high school, I was good with math and numbers and not traditional algebra, but I was good at figuring things out.
Right.
And I took that application out of high school, went out and got a job and became successful. I'm at where I'm at now.
Right.
We're helping those kids now to find those diamonds in the rough, so to say, of their personality, well, that will let them shine.
Right.
One thing you said, Aswan, is that, you know, it's not being, some of the social skills aren't being taught from family and again, one of the things we learned through our volunteering at DECA, which is a high school marketing and sales curriculum, is that parents can't teach what they don't know.
Yes.
Whether it be financial literacy, whether it be social skills, whether
handshaking and eye contact,
computers.
Some of them, and sadly, we were just talking about, some of them are kids themselves.
Right, exactly, and sadly enough. And so if you can't teach what you don't know, we need to come along and underpin that our community and say, look, you may not know, but we know. How can we get the information to you?
So we're in the classroom. Anne says, okay, everybody stand up. They all stand up. She goes up and say, look in my eyes and give me a handshake, and you get that wet noodle. She said, no, that's not right.
Yep. Yeah.
And she gets it again. Then she moves down. I go right behind her. I said, okay, give me a firm handshake. Give me that eye contact. We practice that. So when they go out on that job interview, and it doesn't matter if you're going to do a construction job, you're going to do an office job, whatever it is, you need to be met with somebody. You're going to meet with somebody and really be open and show that your firm handshake and your eye contact gives them confidence that you're a good person. They're going to be a good employee.
Well, and the reason I go first is because a lot of times there's a lot of gentlemen in the class and they don't know how to handle a woman. Like, it's like, okay, like I don't want to, like,
I grew up in I'm a football guy. So again, I get to the choir. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You gotta
own it. I go first so I can show them, like, it's okay to grab tight and pull, like, that's okay. Even though I mean, you don't want to grip my hand off necessarily, but you want it to be firm and up and down, not like sideways and, nothing.
It's business, regardless of whether it's a female or a male. It's business, and they're going to get a job with a business.
Yeah, so I had a coach. Shout out to Coach McFadden. I was a sophomore in high school, and he was brand new to the staff. He was like brand new to the building, and he came into the weight room one time, and he gave everybody a handshake. And apparently, I gave him a wet noodle, like you said. And then he walked back. He goes, "Get a man grip on that shake." And so I was like 14 years old, and to this day, it's a firm handshake. And, just because of that one thing.
Remember that.
Right.
You remember that. We're hoping these kids we're meeting are going to meet that. And, we'll get 60, 70 kids a year that'll come through those classes and have that opportunity. We help them prepare for those job interviews.
Yes, and it helps me to this day. I mean, again, as I got into the coaching ranks, as I got into meeting other coaches, when college coaches would come in and speak to us, it was firm shake, eye contact, and there's a respect factor there because the way you go about becoming an adult, the way you conduct yourself, how you deal with people, all of that starts. I say it all the time, you do not get a second chance at a first impression, guys. So that first impression has to be on point. All right. And no matter the field, whatever it is you do. And one of the things I do want to make sure I talk to you guys about as well is when you're transitioning from, hiring these people from the Philippines and then to kids, what is the communication like with the people that are actually employees? And I ask this because I remember I worked for a married couple, and what happened not even, it was actually before I even got there, I found out that they got a divorce. And it ended up, she left. I mean, it's not a surprise why the business is no longer they're no longer in business, and I'm not putting anything out there with you guys. But the issue I had was not that, oh, he didn't tell me. The issue was you didn't communicate that your co-owner is no longer going to be running the business with you, and she went off and did her own thing, and that was something that really rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like now I'm kind of running the gym and you didn't tell me that the one that handles all the finances is there. Maybe I could have looked at other opportunities, and it kind of it hurt our relationship because the communication wasn't there. So I'm asking, like, how do you go about communicating with the people without making it so your personal life isn't too out there for people and you guys can keep the private things that need to be private?
Well, first of all, we don't believe in divorce. Murder, yes. Divorce, no.
Yeah.
So that just saying, if he ever doesn't show up one day,
no D word, but the M word's okay, right?
Yeah, no, and that's not our original joke. That was actually somebody else's, but we
took advantage of it. We were using it.
Hey, take it, man. Take it. Just like analytics, that's yours. Anybody else and try to take that, that's you.
Yeah. So in all of our businesses, what we do is we look at who has the better skill set for a particular part of the business. So, there's the marketing, there's the finances, there's all kinds of components of running a business. And we like to believe we've got a big advantage because I've got one skill set and Ann has another. So before this meeting, she's in her zone of genius, doing her best way of growing our business. And I'm over in the office next door in my zone of genius, doing my best way.
So but again, what you're talking about is true. So we wouldn't think about it in terms of divorce because that's really not an option for us. But 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my God!
And I'm cancer free. Praise God.
Praise God, we're cancer free.
But that was an interrupter.
But there's been multiple cancer survivors on this show as well. So praise you.
Thank you. Yes, I had tongue cancer, believe it or not, and you probably didn't even notice because I worked really hard to make sure. So a third of my tongue got removed as part of that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was a huge wake-up call. And so we had to really look at all of our businesses and what would have happened had I not been here. Now, again, so we have contingencies in case something happens to either one of us, because you have to, as a business owner, you have to be responsible, just like you were talking about, for your people. Like we have over 1,000 workers in the Philippines. That's a lot of responsibility. If something were to happen to Mark or I, we needed to make sure that we had what we call a deep bench. Now, again, our positions are not as, quote, deep as some of the other positions in our company, but it remains the same. Like we have a plan. So Mark takes care of a lot of the financials. So you mentioned that was a concern for you. So we have a backup plan should something happen and he not be able to fulfill that function. We have a backup plan for me if I'm not able to fulfill my function.
She's front office, I'm back office is how we like to describe it.
Right. So I think in any responsible business owner, you have to think of those types of contingencies. Not so much, again, divorce really isn't an option for us. But death surely was something that we both faced. And again, he had to face, well, hi, I want to be taking care of you when this is happening. What happens to all of our employees? So we realized early on that we needed to have those types of contingencies so that our business can survive and thrive in the absence of the owners. And Hire Smart Cares, Mark is actually the front person in Hire Smart Cares.
And she's the back office.
And I'm the back office. So, we are, again, as I continue to transition more focus over to Hire Smart Cares, if you do EOS, he's the visionary. EOS is business language of managing your business. Entrepreneurial operating system. It's a great read for anybody that's interested in that. And I'm the integrator. So he's the one who kind of sets the pathway. I'm the visionary. They give me a big window to come up with ideas, right? Yes. And let's do this. And then she says, okay, I'll make it happen. Yeah, I put legs on it. So I'm the one who gets it working. And so that's worked really well for us as a team. And again, it doesn't mean that I don't do vision. It doesn't mean that he doesn't do implementation. It just means those are our primary focuses. Yeah, Hire Smart Cares. This morning, I'm out in meetings with people talking about how can we
bring more to the kids in the community. What can we do more? So I'm out doing the implementation, so to say, in that role. And I love doing that because I came back with some new ideas from that meeting. I'm like, hey, Ann, we can do this. So there's some other avenues.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of what you guys are saying that is reminding me of my own parents. You know, my father, from the time I was in middle school all the way till I was a freshman in college, he didn't have a kidney. You know, he was on dialysis, and my mother had to figure it out. They would work together, and so much of, I mean, now he's still with us, but my mother would tell me all the time, look, we took out a lot of insurance. I had to figure certain things out. I was going to this private school. My sister was going to a university, like a college, and we had really had to come together. Now, I'm admitting to you, I was probably a headache for them because in high school, I only cared about football and my grades were just absolutely like atrocious. I ended with a 2.2, and my dad would drive me to school and he goes, you know, do you want to just do a trade or something instead of wasting all this money on school and stuff like that? And when I looked at what you guys are doing in terms of agriculture and, you know, creating trades and letting kids actually know that these trades exist, I didn't know what it was when he mentioned to me in high school. What was it about Hire Smart Cares there where you're going to focus directly on agriculture and, you know, gardening and doing the things that a lot of kids just don't see as glamorous jobs necessarily on TV?
Oh, that's great. You know, again, I think a lot of times we feel college isn't the right solution. It is for some. And for those that can afford it and that can, you know, have a you know what they want to do, for those people,
I'll show you the book.
Go for it.
If it wasn't for football, I would not have a college degree. If it wasn't one thing to play football, I would not have a college degree. And that's if you're listening to this on audio, I'm showing up my latest book, Transferring D1. Now this sport, I'm not going to school, but luckily I had the sport and, you know, played and did what I had to do. But you're right. Hey, it's not for everyone, and you have to know.
And kids will come out, Ann's in her middle 50s. I won't give any more than that, but
56, I don't care.
Most of the kids that go to college that are her age and took loans out, federal loans for college education, still owe $45,000 at her age. So think about that.
Been paying on it for 20 years.
Yeah, they graduate in their 20s. They pay for all this time. They still owe $45,000, and may or may not have a good income from that career choice for the education that they got. And that was really frustrating.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what started a lot of this, is that there were kids that were getting saddled with debt because that was just where everybody was heading, right? And they didn't really have a plan, and they didn't really know what to do, and they really just didn't have the vision of what they wanted. And we see that a lot. And so the reason that we started Hire Smart Cares and that we support trade so much is because it's a great paying job. I mean, we in our specific high school, we implemented last year a drone program. And so kids get to, quote, play with drones all day.
It's through the ROTC. We got a great leader there.
We do. But they actually earn their NIST certification, which means they can get a job making $60,000 a year right out of high school. For playing with drones. I mean, honestly, I want to play with drones. I think that's amazing.
Right.
But it teaches them very specific skills that they can use. And, you know, drones can be used, you know, in defense. And like I said, we're aligned with the junior ROTC, but they can also be used in utility lines, checking farm and agricultural land, like for different things.
There's so many
uses for it that if you know how to do it and operate it and do it appropriately, you can get an amazing job.
Backing up, the reality of what we were trying to do was really, it was somewhat self-serving because I like to eat and I was worried about food, right? And we also had a business that we managed a bunch of rental homes, and we had trades, plumbers, electricians, and all the time going to these places and working. And we couldn't find enough trades. And then we lived in the city, we lived out in metro part of Atlanta, and we really didn't realize until we moved into the rural part of the state here, what it was to be involved with agriculture. And you know, we get our grand girls up here and we take them and they get to go milk cows. They get to go pull eggs out of a nesting box because they thought that eggs and milk came from Publix.
No.
Yes, and I could see myself thinking that same thing because you're right. Where exactly is it being taught in school that is coming?
So we take them right there to the source, and then so we had trouble finding trades, and we realized we can change that. We can change that mindset that the kids can realize where their food does come from and be involved in that. And then we can change the mindset for the people that need work done.
Right.
And I did a presentation. I said, when's the last time your toilet broke? You couldn't get a plumber there for 2 days. And that was pretty bad.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And that is tough to deal with as an individual when you're out there. I mean, you've got multiple toilets, but you want things done. The electricity needs to come on. And so we thought we can really start impacting day to day by getting these kids to get these skills. And then that'll take them for careers for now and forever.
And even if they don't decide to go into agriculture, right? It teaches responsibility of taking care of an animal. It teaches the connection that you have with food. I mean, I'll give you just a funny example. My dad came up here and we live in the country. And I said, would you like some milk? And he looked at it and it was in a glass container.
It's raw milk.
And he goes,
right from the cow.
Oh, can I drink that? Like, is that safe? Like, I'm like, Dad, it's a cow. Like, so he had this mental block over drinking the milk that we have in our refrigerator because it just came from a cow.
Yeah.
It's not in a cardboard box.
Cardboard box, right.
So somebody who is as intelligent as my dad and everything has this disconnect with food and think that things that are natural, things that are again more a homesteading type life is wrong. And
I was in an ag meeting at our local chamber, the agricultural committee, and we're talking about fairs coming up, agricultural fairs, and the FFA, which is Future Farmers of America, and the events that they've got going on. And let me tell you, we've been to some of the FFA events, and those kids are sharp. They meet you at the door and meet eye contact, they firm handshake, they carry themselves well, they talk well. So we help in those areas. We help fund a barn expansion for allowing the kids that live in subdivisions that can't keep farm animals to have animals. And so, think about this. You have a swine, or you have a cow or dairy or whatever it is. You got to feed them at 7 o'clock in the morning, get them water. You got to feed them at night at 7 o'clock. That is a responsibility. 7 days a week. You don't just take off. So those kids are learning a lot of responsibility in that, and they're learning how to put food on your and my table. And that was the self-serving part I tell you about. I'm hungry, I want to eat. And so we started saying, how can we make sure we've got good quality food coming to us through the future?
So that's how
out of curiosity, I mean, about how young do you recognize this in kids? And I'm asking more specifically for, I teach now, I teach a 4th grade class, and we have a young student who you can tell that it's not diagnosed, but you can tell that she's out of certain things. But just like literally before we started recording, there was a science worksheet that we're teaching them science right now. And the project is to they was talking about blueprints and building a skateboard and all that. And then the next question was, they had a picture of a kid who had a helmet on, and they said, hey, make this helmet a little better. And she wanted to immediately draw the picture of the helmet. And I told her, look, all right, write 2 sentences first, and then you get to draw the picture, because that's what she likes to do. So she ends up writing about 4 or 5 sentences about how, we're going to put cotton inside the helmet, and then we're going to make it glass, and then we're going to have like all terms. I'm like, wait, you kind of better, you smarter than me when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Wonderful.
And the thing is, they got interrupted because she had to take a math test where she just kind of put her head down because the math test was on the computer. And I'm thinking to myself, if we can incorporate, if we can figure out how to pull what she liked doing in terms of the helmet activity, being an engineer, like I'm talking to her about being an engineer and how math relates to engineer. If we can figure out how to pull her towards that to make it so work is kind of engaging, how are we able to pull that? And she's only in 4th grade. That's what I'm asking. I'm not sure how young you guys start and stuff like that.
can I share a story of some
Yeah,
fourth
please.
and fifth graders that I met?
Oh, okay,
So,
good. You are that age.
Yeah, so I'm at the elementary school, and we fund construction materials, wood, screws, and nails and stuff for this program that we've got a great teacher there that teaches the kids. They build bluebird boxes and just simple little things, but they're building picnic benches around the school.
Okay.
They're operating chop saws and drills and drilling in screws. And I'm over there because we're funding these materials and these tools, right? Because I've got a teacher that's interested. So I go into there and they're showing me some things. We're talking about they'll measure twice, cut once, and they have math, but they have a picture of what a foot is and how it's divided. If you have to divide a piece of wood into 5 equal pieces and how to measure, they're learning math and things. But this one little girl came up to me and was talking. She says, we're building the picnic tables. We're using these big screws. She says, and they got one called a Phillips head. And she says, every time I'm trying to run that down with the drill, it spins out. And I said, wow. She says, well, what'd you do? And she says, well, we found these star-shaped heads that I can drill down that don't spin out.
Oh, yeah.
Problem solving.
Yes.
But the teacher later says, that girl doesn't talk to anybody. She doesn't do anything in school. She just attends. But when she gets into this class, she shines. That is that love that she has. It's going to, like you're talking about this young lady with the helmet. She'll find her way through the years of construction classes in our high schools and coming out, and she'll go to work somewhere in construction building something because she's finding her heart. She's finding her desires early, 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
That is precious.
It is.
We're down there with the construction. We're doing similar with around agriculture and plants and growing things. And they're learning early what their skills and what their loves are.
So one of the things that we would really love to do is get more teachers on board.
You actually kind of beat me to it. How do people connect? Because you answered the question in terms of how young. We want to figure out how we're able to. I'm in South Florida. You guys are in Georgia, right? What's next? How are schools that are listening in, superintendents, anybody that's listening in, how are they able to collaborate, kind of lock arms?
That's right.
Board?
Yeah. So we went to the superintendent and I said, I want to talk to all the principals here. And I want to tell everybody, if I gave your school $5,000 each, what could you get a teacher in your school to do to teach some skill sets that could develop into careers? It's not about taking a trip to the Georgia aquarium and seeing the fish. It's really doing things. So we have teachers reach out with ag programs, with construction programs, but I do not have enough of those teachers because there's so many things they have to do to meet the requirements to get the federal funds and get the graduation rates. There's so much that the teacher, and they work so hard. They work so many hours now, but every now and then we'll get a teacher like our ROTC teacher says, I want to teach drones and I want to get these kids certified so they'll have jobs. We fund that all day long. And if you can find a way to get to teachers, we can fund those things.
Yeah, we can fund nationally. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be here in our local area. But one of the things that I kind of want to go back to just a minute, we definitely know that a lot of the teachers are strapped. You have testing, you've got all kinds of stuff that you need to do. But I'm a firm believer in creative process. And I believe that there is nothing that prevents a teacher from leveling up where they are. And again, it's something as simple as shaking the kids' hands once a week when they come in the door and teach them how to shake hands and look them in the eye. Like that's an easy thing to do because those social skills, if they can be taught, even hither, thither, yither, and yon in the classroom, will build their kids' confidence. And so we were listening to a teacher presentation and they kept saying, yeah, they did job shadowing for some local employers. I'm like, yeah, everybody says our kids need social skills, but I don't have time to teach them. I'm like, really? Like, can you not incorporate that? Can you not gamify it? Can you not?
Kids will love that.
But I definitely think that as a teacher, And I'm happy to, any teacher that wants to meet with me to get some ideas, I will meet with you. It's meetwithann.com. I'm happy to have that conversation with you about how you can, incorporate fun little things into your course without adding a bunch to the curriculum.
Right.
That will change your kids' lives. Just little things. And I know that every teacher, usually in their class of 20 to 25, has at least one or two that they have a heart for. Like I'm sure if I asked you, like, you don't have to say their name because they might be listening. Yeah. But I mean, you have a couple. Yeah, you have a couple in there that if you could give a leg up to, you would do it, right? Like, it only takes a few of those to have a movement. There's a great story that I remind myself all the time, because if it were me, I'd save everybody. But you can't. And so the story goes that there's a beach with 1,000 different starfish on the beach that have washed up on the beach. And you got a guy that picks one up and throws it in, and picks one up and throws it in. And his person comes alongside and says, why do you bother? You'll never save them all. He throws one and he goes, it matters to that one. Like, I was able to make a difference with that one. And that's kind of where we are at Hire Smart Kids. We just need to make a difference with who we can.
Yeah. I was in high school, and the story you told about the young lady with the helmet reminded me in high school. That was me. I ended up getting into some of your engineering and stuff. I was good with numbers and good with concepts and design and visualization and all. Yeah. But Mr. Wagner in high school set me on the trajectory through having confidence in me to do the things that I could do in wood shop and drawing and all those classes that I had. They got me to where I'm at today. And if we can discover those, help those kids discover early on, that's going to put them on those tracks. So when I went and I pitched for, hey, which principal has a teacher here? Yeah. Some teachers would stand up and say, hey, I've got an idea. Here's what I'd like to do. Here's what the budget is. Will you support it? And we've not turned down a reasonable request. Like I said, somebody wants to go to Georgia Aquarium and load up a bunch of kids on a bus and $400 for that. No, I'm not going to support that. But if it'll give a kid some insight into a career opportunity for them, we're able to fund, and we're having challenges finding enough teachers that have the time and the skill sets sometimes to do those things.
Yeah, I'm all for it if I can support in any way. I mean, to go back to the story that just happened, it gave me goosebumps. And I say it all the time, teachers learn from students just as much as the students learn from teachers. Like, me and this girl fight all the time. I mean, we go at it all the time. She takes her iPad, she throws it around. We go at it all the time. But in that moment, none of it mattered. None of it mattered. That was the light that I was like, look at the helmet. I told you to write 2 sentences. You damn near wrote a whole paragraph. Look at what you did.
She's a future product designer. Think about it. She's an engineer, product designer, something like that. Who knows?
And it's our job to recognize these things, tell the mother, tell the parents, don't give up on any kid. I don't care what they're diagnosed with. There's something that they can grab from it. And if you emphasize these things, if you just show them, they will find it and they'll just keep moving forward. It was the great Warren Buffett who said, look, I just stay away from the stuff I'm not good at. Look at what he said,
And for me, school, I was not good at it. Right. But I learned something. Yeah, I wasn't good at all the education, and I didn't do great. And I have grades to show that I didn't cheat or do anything, because I just barely got through. But I got the skill set, and I got focused on the right things that took me into my career, and now are my passion. Help other kids that are like me. Now, they're now like I was years ago.
Well, and I'll also share this briefly. And I don't know how we're going on time, but kids learn in different modalities. I mean, one of the things I realized pretty early on was that I was a very, very, very slow reader. It wasn't that I couldn't read. I love to read, but I read very slowly, because what happens is I'm an auditory. I have to read it aloud in my head. Yeah. And so it takes me forever because I have to sound everything out. My dad was like, why does it take, like, what's wrong with you? And I finally just realized that, okay, I have to adapt to my strengths. I have a recorder in my head. I will remember this conversation 10 years from now that I met you and we had this conversation. But if I had to read our conversation, I wouldn't absorb any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So realizing that your kids have different modalities, some have to physically interact with something. Sometimes they need to hear it. Most everybody, there's 80% of the world that's visual. So, you have to teach the majority, but there are some of us that learn differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's
How do you reach them?
For me, when I'm teaching, and I do a lot of teaching, I teach in all three modalities, and I make it a point to make sure that everything lines up for the best results for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we always have activities to reinforce the learning that they heard and they saw. And so it doesn't take me any more time to teach a class than it would take you.
Yeah.
I just make sure I'm operating in all of those because it was important to me, because I felt left out. I felt like I was not smart.
Right.
And so once I learned that, okay, as long as I sit in the front row and I take good notes and the teacher like tests on the lectures, I was good. I made great grades. But if it was read this book and we'll test you on it, I was on the struggle bus.
So we go to conferences and all now. Where are we at? We're on the front row because we want to get everything. I get distracted by other people's heads. So I have to sit up front. Otherwise, I'm worried about look at the back of his head. Oh, his shirt collar is not right. I get distracted myself. So we sit up front.
Even in church.
That's how we learn. That's how we can focus.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the arguments me and her just got into was there's a confusion between school and learning. I'm like,
yes.
like just because you're leaving school, learning's not gonna end. So you got to keep learning regardless. And again, it's grown man going back and forth with school, which I love though, because we get to have that. And she knows I'm not talking at her, talking to her. We're not.
Right.
And that's the kind of interaction that is just priceless, because young people, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna remember the adults that just had this talking to them straight up. They're not talking to them as if they're better than them. They're just talking to them and giving them, look, everything we tell you, and this is to the hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of kids that have record of known me from some way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm just telling you the stuff I would have done. Period. That's it. Right. That's all thought leaders do. Every educator that gets in this, once it gets in your blood and you can't live without it, all we're doing is telling you the stuff that we would have done at your age. That's it.
Sharing your experience.
That's right.
And you talk about the mindset of education and school. We're trying to change the concept of our high school to being an employment center.
That's right. Not an education center, an employment center.
They get an education there, but they're coming out for jobs. It needs to be, and if that mindset is across the board and everybody's working towards that, they won't graduate on Friday and go, what the heck am I going to do on Monday? They are already set up in a career path, or in our case, we're trying to make sure they have a job on that Monday.
Right. Well, you let it right in.
Them.
Can you just kind of speak on how people can get in touch with you and what's next and all that good stuff?
Very easily. It's www.hiresmartcares.org is our website. You can learn more about our initiatives and what we're doing. If you want to donate, there's a way to do that. If you want to or have ideas, we would love to hear from you. Yeah. We are always open. Our primary focus in the next year is to provide tools. So if you are going into a trade right out of high school and you need some boots, helmets, or whatever, we've got grants you can apply for. So if you're a student, we would love to give you some tools to help you on your journey. If you have an initiative, if you're a teacher and you want to do something, we would love to talk with you about how we could support you there. info@hiresmartcares.org is our primary email address. And other than that, if anybody wants to talk with me specifically, you can go to meetwithann.com. Happy to have another conversation and help you in any way that I can. So that's it.
All that'll be included in the show notes as well. So this has been absolutely incredible. And so the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You guys are, I believe, can't remember the name of the restaurant, but you're on your vacation, you're on the beach, the sun's going down, it's feeling good. You get this text from an employee, hey, I quit, see ya. Pretend that version of you guys has come into the Zoom room, give those two, I guess, some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Well, if I had to say anything to encourage you is everything happens for a reason and make it your best no matter what. it's all going to be okay. That's what I would say.
Yeah, you take advantage of the opportunity,
Yes.
however it's dealt to you.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of things around us that we don't control, but when we do get hold of whatever's going on with us, we made some new decisions, we changed our business, and we're better off, and now we have a non-for-profit to help make things better, all out of that one text.
Right,
Think
none of
about
us
that.
here without that. So it's a God thing. We're excited.
There you have it. Listen, listeners, as promised, as the number one guarantee on this show is whatever you may be going through, or if you're dealing with whatever challenge. The reason I close out with that question is I want you listeners to understand you're not going through it alone, and whatever may be happening that doesn't feel like it's good or whatever, there's always people out there that you can reach out to that are going to help you pull you up through that moment. But you have to be willing to put in the work, and you got to be willing to take the hits, man. It's a ball buster, and things are going to happen.
Yeah, it felt terrible in that moment, but it's been the best thing that ever happened to us.
Best thing that ever, and I'm glad you closed it out with that. The best thing was that felt like, man, that must have been a whole lot to pull yourself from a vacation that took decades and decades to even get on. So all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly, and we will talk more soon.
Thank
you
you.
for